Yo, what is going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another deck profile. This is one that I'm super proud to do. I'm here with Novin today, who got top 16 at the San Diego Regional, piloting Gogeta Xeno. Novin has been playing this deck for such a long time. I've been working with him for a long time on pretty much, perfecting his craft with this deck. So Novin, first off, how you doing today, man?
Dude, I'm feeling good, man. I'm pumped after that win. It was a long time coming, and it's my first best of 3 regional top, so I'm happy.
Awesome, man. Again, I'm super proud of you. I know you've been putting the work in, so you just totally deserve this. But I guess real quick for the viewers out there, why Gogeta Xeno for such a long time? You've been playing it for sets and sets and sets.
I've literally been playing him since he came out, and it's straight up just because he's like one of my favorite characters. Aggro's not even like my main style. Like I like more range decks, but I just like the character so much, so I just stuck with it.
Awesome, man. I love the fact that players can do that. They pick a deck that they like, also happens to be good, or maybe they just like, even the Android 16, right? Like Jared Lopez with that kind of deck. But anyways, all right. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get into your matchups. So why don't you run us through those real quick? We'll talk about them.
Yeah, sure. A lot of U7 Gokus. Round 1 was a U7 Goku. Round 2 was actually the mirror match. It was another Gogeta Xeno. Round 3 was the Black Shadow Dragons, the mill deck. Round 4 was the Yellow Future Trunks, the I guess Trunks Gogeta. Round 5 was another U7 Goku. Round 6 I played against Jared Lopez's Android 16. Round 7 was a Sin Shenron, and round 8 was another U7 Goku. So 3 U7 Gokus.
All right, so you went through the ringer. You played against pretty much mostly meta. You played against a very good player as well, at least one that we know of. So quick couple questions. What kind of advice would you give players in the Gogeta Xeno mirror? Because I'm sure that's one that's going to come up a lot.
That's tough. Obviously, like the dice roll is like heavily favored for the person who goes first, but like my main advice, especially if you're going second, like you and I talked about this a lot, and I think it's still proven to be fact. I think whoever plays Gogeta, the Thwarting the Dark Empire, whoever plays that first is actually at a disadvantage.
Right.
I kind of think of it the same way as Piccolo Eradicator of Peace. The first one, like that first double strike, you can kind of take. It's the late game double strikes that are actually a little bit more dangerous. So if you're taking like maybe 1 or 2 swings of Thwarting the Dark Empire, it's not entirely terrible. And against in the mirror match, right, just depending on how the matchup goes, I would also recommend not taking your life as much with your leader ability on the front side. But I think if you're just patient with the Thwarting the Dark Empire and paying it late, it actually can be more beneficial, and because they just warp your thwarting away. And sure, you can grab it back and stuff with how the deck is built, but I think the person who plays thwarting first, especially even if they go first, like can actually be at a disadvantage. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, imagine playing your thwarting and your opponent plays their thwarting the next turn, and you couldn't even attack with yours, and then they get to attack with theirs.
Right.
Another question I have: so you played against 3 different U7s, all of which are rounds that you won, I believe, right?
Yes, I won every single matchup against the U7 Gokus.
So that's another very popular meta matchup. Why don't you give the viewers some advice for that matchup?
Yeah, at least for us, all the versions that I played against were the 3-drop unison variants. I think one person played a Sin Shenron 3-drop unison, but a majority of the rest played the Jiren unison. That's more favorable for us, in my opinion. Them tapping 3 energy, even if they awaken that turn, is putting them a turn behind on them trying to establish a unison, and they're also they don't have a counterplay sooner than they would if they played the Piccolo unison, the 2-drop unison, right? Turn 2, they have a Yamcha Merciless Barrage, available on turn 2, but that's really easy to play against because we have a lot of cards in the deck that have deflect. But the fact that they play a 3-drop unison, that's 1 turn later than them trying to actually put on pressure. Like, you can take the Android 17 double strike, you can take the Frieza dual attack 19s, you can take that Goku counterplay 19 attack in the beginning. Like, these are all things that you can take in the beginning. And so that late game pressure, that turn 3, we have a much faster turn 3 pressure than they do. So that's why, like, anytime I see a 3-drop unison variant of the U7 Goku, it's much more favorable for a Gogeta Xeno player, at least in my opinion. And that proved to be fact. Like, the 2-drop Piccolo unison variant is a little bit tougher to play against, even though we can play against Yamcha because we have cards with deflect. It's it's quicker, right? It's faster, and they're getting card draws off the Piccolo Unison. So like whenever they're doing Violent Rays against us, we can play around Violent Rays and we can play around a turn later Unison much easier than we could than against the Piccolo Unison. So that's my opinion on it. I also tested a lot against it. I have a lot of people who play the 3-drop Unison variant at my locals, and so I think I was really prepared for that matchup, but we put on more pressure on turn 3 than they do if they're running a 3-drop Unison. I hope that makes sense. Like,
yeah,
2-drop,
I'm definitely with you, and I played against you a lot with a 2-drop variant, right? So you got good experience with both. So yeah, I totally agree. Where they're spending their entire turn 3 potentially tapping out, and you're just putting on a ton of pressure. So yeah, I think that's really good insight on both of those really popular matchups. So with that being said, I will repost Novin's matchups down in the pinned comments so you guys can reference it. But anyways, we'll get into the deck profile here. So I want to do it this way just because, you know, it's Gogeta Xeno. A lot of it we know about. We're going to skim through a lot of it, but we are going to talk about the more techie stuff. So we've got, of course, our 6 Gogetas, super combos, true fighting spirits, more Gogetas, our Kai that lets us play our Unison, Vegeta True Fighting Spirit, 1 Champa. Now, this I think is a little bit interesting to talk about because I know, you know, there are matchups where you want to side out Champa, and I know there are lots of players out there that are like, you know, Champa's my win condition. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I actually never cited him out in any matchups. I'm glad I didn't.
Nice.
I just think of him as like he's that, like when you need him and he's there, it's great. Sure, when you mill him, it's not the end of the world. We have a lot of double strikers. We have a lot of like 30k, 20k attackers.
Yep.
We have plenty of ways to end the game without Champa. But sure, when you have him in your hand, like if I'm like getting him in my hand, opening hand, like on the mulligan, I keep it. Like it's great. Do I need him every single time to win the game? No. In fact, I probably only use Champa maybe like once or twice in all 8 rounds, like between best of 3 games, to like close out the game. He's not terribly needed in every single thing. Like at least in my experience, I'm fine without it.
Right.
And if I get it, I hold on to it.
Yeah, and actually, it's worth mentioning too that you really like a lower deck count for Gogeta Xeno, where a lot of players are playing like 55, even sometimes like closer to 60 cards. But you really value that consistency, so you know you wanted to keep it as thin as possible, which definitely contributes to that.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving along, Super Kamehameha, of course, now a staple in decks like this. Pan. And then the new addition, from the new set that a lot of people have been playing, of course, is SSG Trunks. But speaking of SSG Trunks, you very early on, you decided to start playing this like 30k variant, basically revolving around Beyond All Limits and SS4 Vegeta Feigned Greeting. And I know that as soon as you started playing it, you felt an immediate power spike compared to like the way Gogeta Xeno used to play. So I guess talk about that a little bit for anyone who's not really playing the 30k variant. Is it the power of being able to overwhelm them? Is it the fact that you just have more fusion material? Like, what does it really add to the deck in your opinion?
The biggest thing with Trunks is that he has Deflect, right? So that Deflect plays in a lot of things, man. It's so, like blue is a favorable matchup for us, which is great because like their biggest counter to us is God Sealing Trunks. Okay, you can't do that now against a Deflect dual attack 20k attacker. He's filling in your Overwhelm for 6. He's filling your drop with 6 cards every single time, right? And it just puts on a lot of pressure. And being able to free Overwhelm into any of the 30k guys, like it's just such a good curve. Like your turn 2 curve is so strong compared to your opponents. Turn 1 thwarting, turn 2 into a Trunks. Like that's a 25k double strike, that's 220k single attacks, and then you bring it into a 30k. It's just like I did that so many times in the tournament, and because we keep our card count low, it's very consistent and it's very easy to do that, to go into that turn 2 play. And Feigned Greeting is just, that card is broken. This thing won me so many games where it's like, okay, I'm gonna try to go for game. Opponent, how many cards do you have in your hand? I have like 5, maybe 4 or 6 or whatever, because they spend so many resources trying to defend you, you just can't do it. And so, okay, I'm gonna make you warp 1 more card, and then there's another card that we tech in here that helps us close out games. But Feigned Greeting is just, I'm very lucky to have pulled 3 of these before it got overly expensive.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have this card, there is SS4 Vegeta thwarting the Dark Empire. I think it's a overwhelm 6 for 1 energy, and it's a critical, and it kind of has a secret identity masked sand effect. You can substitute that card for this one if you don't have Feigned Greeting, but Feigned Greeting is just nuts. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. That does suck a little bit for people who want to keep the budget down. You definitely can replace it, like Novin said, but I mean, yeah, this card is just free. It's a little bit better, but yeah, no, it definitely adds a ton of power to the deck. But anyways, next up we have, my opinion, one of the most broken cards in the deck, Supreme Kai of Time, Guardian of Space Time. This, I think, is starting to catch on in Gogeta builds, although I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, everyone should be playing 4 copies. It's just so powerful. Novin, what was your experience with this card?
Let's talk about this card for a bit. I think some people are catching on because the mirror match I fought in round 2, she was running it,
Okay,
but
nice.
a majority of the folks that I played against, they straight out, flat out told me, like, dude, like, I've never seen a Gogeta player play this card, and the fact that you play this, like, won you all your games. Dude, this is the best offensive defensive card that we have in the deck because it helps you defensively, and like if you're in a pinch to trying to survive, right? Because it's just an extra 5k combo in your hand, and at the same time, you can push for games on it, right?
Yep.
You're out of super combos, and your opponent's like, oh, okay, you've milled 4 of your super combos off your leader ability. Well, I still have an extra 4 super combos in my deck because of this thing. What's really great about this card is the fact that the main counter, or I guess like sideboard card that people put in against Gogeta Xeno is Oceanus, right? Now, there are times where like I don't care about Oceanus if I don't have the SK and I don't hit the Oceanus, I can still push for game and mill decks. If I mill this card, it's coming onto the board, which is super nice. So it's like if you're getting hit by it's really nuts. Like you get hit by an Oceanus, but you have maybe like, I don't know, like 10 cards left in deck, and you just need that, like, let's say 8 cards in deck. You just need one swing, and then this guy comes in onto the board off your mill 4 from the Oceanus effect, and this just extra combo power. It's really great, and we'll talk about why we run some other particular extra cards with this card. But yeah, this card literally won me so many of my matches, defensively and offensively. Saves me in a pinch, and then like I'm pushing with like, you know, for game, and they probably have used 2 super combos, and I don't have any super combos, any Vegeta super combos in hand. This thing will just flat out win you the game. It's so good. I think people will probably catch on. I have to thank you for this. Like when we last did a deck profile for one of my tops, it was before Thwarting came out. I was running this deck, and a lot of people were running Time Regulator Trunks, and I was like, no, you should run Unrelenting Assault Trunks because that's a free draw. Then people started catching on that after we did the video, and you had a great hand size, right? Because that was free draw.
Yep.
Bandai said that's too overpowered. We're gonna hit that. Your hand size is not as big anymore because you don't have Unrelenting Assault Trunks, so it is extremely easy to get this card off because you will almost always have, like in the pinch when you're going for game or defending yourself,
Yep.
you will have the 5 cards or less in your hand to get this effect off. It's extremely easy to do it because we don't have that large hand size anymore with Unrelenting Assault Trunks. This card's just nuts. I think people will start to catch on now, and especially after this video, I think people will start to put this in their Gogeta Xeno decks. It's really good, man. It's super good.
Yeah, I think this is gonna become a staple in black aggro decks for sure. It's just way too strong. Just the combo effect. Like, it doesn't matter if your leader's a black sand or not. It's just way too good. And that is, like you mentioned, the main reason we play Power Burst. Me and you talked about it. Petrification, not as good in this format.
Right.
Power Burst, though, just being a negate that can pick up your Kai is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah, that's why we run the Power Burst over the supporting the Dark Empire. The way I look at it, the Kai Negate and Power Burst are interchangeable cards. It's player preference, right? We play Power Burst instead of supporting the Dark Empire because they both do the same thing. They're both free negates. One gives you a blocker token that's an extra 5k combo that can stop an attack. Power Burst grabs our Kais back from the drop and or warp as well too. Yeah, either or. We'll talk about a side deck card that Power Burst can also help grab in case you mill it into the warp, but that's why we run Power Burst over supporting the Dark Empire.
Yep.
And then, like you mentioned, this meta isn't really too heavy on big boss monsters, aside from maybe the 8-drop Red Goku and U7. So that's why we play the Kai Negate. Like, she's a decent floodgate. She's a 5k combo. She can be grabbed back by the SS4 Goku Beyond All Limits. So this proved to be a good call. She was really good, but there were a couple of matchups where I did side in the Petrification over her, and that helped as well too. But overall, I think the Kai in the main deck was better than Petrification. It worked out.
Yeah, in this meta, 100%. And then we can end the main deck talking about this last minute change that we made. So you were playing 51 cards for the longest time, but we talked about throwing in SS Brock and Tenacious in the main because it's just such a good card this meta. Like in the mirror match, King Piccolo, U7 Goku, and you told me before we started recording that this card was super clutch for you. So yeah, I mean, it must have worked out at one, right? And one more in the side deck. So real good card, right?
Yeah, super good. This helps you with a lot of U7 matchups when they try to push for game. Like it just stops. This won me my mirror match. So that's another advice I'd give to Gogeta Xeno players when they're playing the mirror match. Just main this card, especially this meta, like King Piccolo, U7 Goku, Gogeta Xeno, they all kind of rush the field. This is also really good against Android 16 because they can go kind of aggro. I wish I drew into it when I was playing Jared Lopez. I did not. It would have helped a lot. But it won me my mirror matchup. It even won me my round 4 matchup against Yellow Trunks because sometimes they can go a little bit aggro. They got a 20k EX Evolve guy, 19k blocker. They can go into Basil. They got Turles. So this can help in yellow matchups as well too. It's just a good card. I'm really glad I put it in last minute.
Awesome. All right, so we can definitely check out the sideboard. So we have 4 Heavenly Wizard Demigra, mostly for Sin Shenron. Did you end up bringing this in against anything else?
Literally just for that. It's very unfortunate that you got to I mean, I guess that's what the sideboard is for. You got to side in against your poor matchups. Our 2 worst matchups are Sin Shenron and Hatchiyak. So we side in cards for that. The Demigra, you're literally not going to use it for anything else other than Sin Shenron.
Yep, Gogeta mostly same thing, just bringing it in for Hatchiyak. Did you ever play? Oh yeah, you didn't play against any Hatchiyak, right? So did you ever bring this in against anything else?
Any Hatchiyak, so this guy never came in. He's good against green too, so if you ever run into a green rogue deck, they don't really have a response to this. Charismatic Frieza cannot hit this guy. And it's like, you know, green's not overly aggressive, so if you wanted to tap out for this, theoretically you could, but you're never gonna, like, I wouldn't. Like, if you're at 5 energy, then yeah, you can tap 4, or if you're awakening that turn, then you can do it. But this guy, still, in my opinion, one of the best looking SPRs ever. It's probably my favorite SPR, but it's unfortunate. He never comes in unless you run into Hatchiyak, but you gotta be safe. You gotta be prepared for it in case you do run into it. So you know, that's why he's there.
Yeah, we talked about that exactly, right? Like, you might never side this card because you might never play Hatchiyak, but if it's one of your worst matchups, I mean, yeah, it's better to be safe than sorry.
You gotta do it.
Yep. One more Tenacious for those aggro types of matchups, of course. 2 Koitsukai. How did Koitsukai work out for you? I know you didn't love it in the U7 matchup. It looks like you didn't really play against King Piccolo, but did you ever bring in Koitsukai?
Yeah, against the Yellow Trunks and against Jared Lopez. It is pretty decent against Android 16. I did get it off once because that 6-drop 20k dual attacker, blocker revenge, I don't know the name. They have to pitch 2 if they want to arrive into it. Same with another 15k blocker that like KOs something. So very good against Android 16. Very good against Yellow. Very good against King Piccolo. I didn't play any King Piccolo. I personally do not side in Koitsukai against the U7s, and for me personally, it worked out, obviously, because I won all my U7 matchups, but in theory, it is good against U7, right? You have that counterplay Goku that's a 19k, you have either the Yamcha Merciless Barrage, or the Videl counter, right? So in theory, it works. But against a good U7 player, like, if you tap for this, usually they're thinking in their head, like, oh, thank God, that's one less energy for this Gogeta Xeno player to go into, like, crazy battle card attacks, right?
Yep.
And then their way out of a Gogeta Xeno is usually Violent Rays. So if you go into Koitsukai and they have, like, an energy open, they're usually saving that energy for a Violent Rays, not a counterplay Goku, not a Videl. We have Super Kamehameha to cover us for those, like, counterplay types that U7 plays, and I never sided in Koitsukai once against the U7s, and I'm really glad I didn't. I sided in other cards that were much more useful.
Yeah, definitely a good call. We talked about that one a lot for sure. And then Pycon. So you have a swap here. You have 3 Pycon that can swap in for 3 Mira Unison. So talk about what matchups you bring this in for.
Great for Yellow, Sin Shenron, and for Yellow Trunks, mainly because you have to prepare for what cards your opponent is going to play against you, sideboard and against you, right? The biggest things I can think of that are like good floodgates or stoppers for Gogeta Xeno is the Oceanus, the Black Negate, right? That's one. And then the Vegeta Unison of Fury, the Yellow Unison. So Pycon's very good, man. Pycon is very good against Yellow because you know, if they get a Vegeta Unison of Fury off of you, which Joshua Reese did on round 4, you bring in Pycon. It's like, okay, I can't swing with my big guys, but I'm going to go Weenie Rush, and I don't want to rip the life that much, especially late game. So I'm going to pump them up with Pycon, take out your Unison of Fury, and then just set up for next game. And if my yellow player, the opponent, is tapping 2 energy for a Vegeta Unison of Fury to stop me a turn, that's fine. They're spending resources on a Unison rather than, you know, setting up their board and their control and things. And we always bring in Pycon against yellow matchups. Sin Shenron, yellow Trunks, we always bring in Pycon because you have to expect them to bring in the Unison of Fury against you, and you want to pump up your weenies like so that you're not constantly ripping life. Because if they get the Unison of Fury off on you, there's not much we can do to take that out without being able to attack with our bigger energy costed battle cards, which we can't do because of Unison of Fury's effect. So yeah, that's a straight swap. Anytime I played against the yellow deck, I just brought in Pycon and took out the Miras.
Yes, awesome. Very intelligent play, in my opinion. Siding for the side, for sure. And then 2 Petrification, just cleaning up any boss monster scenarios. And then the one card we talked about was SS3 Vegeta Unstoppable Evolution. So this guy's pretty cool because he can pretty much kill any battle card in the game. We talked about just having, like, a coverall card in our sideboard. Did you ever bring this in?
Yeah, I did bring it in against Yellow Sin Shenron. That's mainly what it's for as well, too. Because, you know, like, Sin Shenron's not really necessarily super aggro until they get into, like, turn 4 beyond, right? Maybe, like, turn 5-ish, after they set up their Meki Gabura Unison. So we take out the Bardock Tenacious in our main deck and we put this guy in. They don't really have a response to it when it comes on to play. It does cost 2 black energy, so that kind of sucks. But the fact that it just kills their 9-drop blocker for free, and you get to replace itself.
Yeah.
And draws you a card. Yeah, that's great. You get to replace him. So that's really good. I wish he was a 30k so it synced up with the rest of the deck, but yeah, not the end of the world because it's a one of. And then I was really prepped for a lot of U7 Goku players to people think I'm crazy for this. I personally think that the red Vegeta secret rare for U7 is not the best for that deck. I think the Brawly red secret rare is better. That's just my opinion. Take it with a grain of salt because I don't play that deck. But in case I ran into the Brawly, I don't have an answer for that Brawly. That Brawly's really scary. And so this is the card that I side in, and you can grab it off Beyond All Limits if it gets warped from your leader ability. You can grab it overwhelm for 2 and get rid of that Brawly secret rare. But I did bring it in against my Sin Shenron matchup. I lost that matchup because Sin Shenron's our main counter for this deck. But I did play it. I did get off a blocker, and he gave me a chance. Like, he gave me a chance to win that game too. I was like, okay, I feel okay now, and I can probably win this and try to push for game 3. It didn't end up happening because Juha had the Flying Nimbus negate, so it didn't work out. But in theory, this guy was really good. Like, when I brought him in against Sin Shenron, it worked.
Awesome, man. All right, very cool. So yeah, I know we're very, very happy with the list. We worked on this thing until we were tired of looking at it. But anyways, Novin, any final shout outs you want to throw out there?
Obviously to Core TCG, I think they gave a really good event. It was a long day, but it was ran very smoothly. Shout out to all my boys at the Game Chest that I test with leading up to this, so they all know. And then of course shout out to my little brother. I always do because he got me into this game. Matt's the man. And shout out to you, man, like, and all your teammates for rooting me on while I was there. Like, you know, I got a chance to talk to him a little bit and he congratulated me. So thanks, Marcus. And Joey, thank you, man, for all the testing and putting in the work helps, man. So I'm glad this top 16 list, I was the top Gogeta Xeno player in 9th place. I think the other one was in 13th. I'm just like, yeah, I can't even speak because it felt good, man. I can't even talk.
Awesome, dude. All right, man. Super proud again. Congratulations. And we'll see you in the next one.
For sure. Thanks, Joey.